This is the brand new Hoka Arahi 8, and if you're a fan of the 6 and the 7, you're going to be in for a shock. I'll break down the features of this shoe so you have a better idea of what the difference are between the 7. If you're new to the Arahi, you'll have a better idea if it's worth buying for you. And at the end of the video, we're going to compare it to Hoka's other stability shoe, the Gaviota 5. So if we look at the midsole first, we've got the same CMEVA cushioning, but they've overhauled the stack and the drop. So we now have 39mm in the rear foot, 31 in the forefoot, giving you an 8mm drop rather than the 5mm drop that we saw in the 7 and the 6. In addition to that, they've changed the profile underneath the shoe and how it feels underfoot. So the cushioning is completely different feel than what we got in the Arahi 6 and 7, so it's not as responsive. So the 6 and 7 was typically built on the Clifton 9, which is the best selling shoe in the Hoka range. The Clifton 10 was completely overhauled as well, and we see a similar midsole here in the Hoka Arahi 8. So it's a lot softer, you sink into it a lot more. It's not as responsive or as bouncy as what we saw in the Arahi 7 and the Arahi 6. So those of you who really like to have a responsive mild stability shoe, you might be a little bit disappointed with the Hoka Arahi 8. Those of you who want a little bit more softness, a bit more comfort focused, you might enjoy this model. Even though they've increased the stack on this shoe, they've managed to drop the weight a little bit, with 269 grams in a size 9 men's US compared to 272 grams in the Arahi 7. When we look at the outsole, we've got a slightly different profile as well. So we've got a little bit more grip on the Arahi 8 than we saw on the Arahi 7. And you can see the rocker profile is different as well. So we've a better heel bevel on the 8, and we've got a better and more aggressive forefoot rocker on the 8 as well. So a completely different feel underfoot in terms of the rocker profile and the softness of the cushioning underneath your foot. Not only that, but as we move up the shoe, the fit is slightly different as well, and that's partly got to do with a new creel jackered mesh compared to the engineered mesh that we saw on the 6 and the 7. So that's a bit more of a knit fit, it wraps around your foot nicely, and it doesn't taper as much in the toe box as what we felt in the 6 and the 7, so a tiny bit more room, but as you'll see in the Gaviota later on, it doesn't compare to that in terms of space in the toe box. I personally found it a true to size and length. We had no problem with slippage around the heel, and the laces locked down nicely, and we've got a nice padded tongue on top that's non-gusseted. The heel counter is different than what we saw in the 7 as well, so it's a lot more flexible at the back. So those of you with sensitivity around the back of the heel, you might enjoy that extra element of flexibility. Then when we talk about stability, here's where the biggest changes are. Those of you who really love the J-frame in the 6 and the 7, so that was that frame that ran underneath the back of the shoe and up the inside of the shoe with denser foam to help control those pronation moments. That's no longer here in the Hoka Arahi 8. They've replaced it with the H-frame that we see in the Gaviota 5. So that's more denser foam on either side of the midsole and across the middle of the midsole to help keep you centered in the shoe. Very similar to what we see in terms of the guide rails and the Brooks stability of shoes. However, it's more focused on a more modern stability method here in the Arahi 7 rather than that classic J-frame medial arch support that we associated with the 6 and the 7. So those of you who enjoy that, you might be a little bit disappointed with what we have in the Hoka Arahi 8. As a result, I think the stability profile of the shoe is slightly different, and while we have sidewalls on the inside and the outside of the shoe, like we saw in the 6 and the 7, it's not as stable as those models, and the reason that we feel that is that the cushioning is a little bit softer. We have a H-frame rather than a J-frame, we've got more flexibility in the heel counter, and the sidewalls aren't as prominently felt as what we felt in the 6 and the 7. So it's more of a mild stability issue than a mild to moderate that we saw in the Arahi 7. When it comes to walking, you'll feel lots of comfort under your foot, really soft, really comfortable. It's a bit more of a luxurious fit. It feels a bit more like the Bondi 9 underfoot, so it's nice and soft, nice and compliant. When it comes to running, it's not as near as responsive as what we felt in the Hoka Arahi 7, so it doesn't spring as much, it doesn't push you off on the front of your shoe, and you don't transition as quickly from the back to the front of the shoe in our opinion. So it's a little bit slower of a shoe, a little bit more focused on comfort rather than the responsiveness that most people liked in the 6 and the 7. So a completely overhauled shoe overall, but let me know what you'd think in the comment section below. And then when we compare it to the Hoka Gaviota 5, well, the Gaviota 5 is a max cushion version of the Hoka Arahi 7, and now in the 8 they're very similar. So previously they differentiated themselves, whereas the 7 was a mild to moderate stability shoe that was very responsive, one of the more faster stability shoes in the market, whereas Arahi 8 is very similar now to the Gaviota 5, with the exception that the toe box is a much better fit on the Gaviota 5. It's a little bit lighter in the Arahi 8 than the Gaviota 5, as it comes in around 310 grams in a size 9 men's US, but it doesn't have any more cushioning underneath your foot, and in fact the Arahi 8 now has more stack underneath your foot. So all these models seem to be moving more and more towards a max stack shoe. I'm not sure it's completely necessary. I'm not sure how we differentiate between the Arahi 8 and the Gaviota 5 anymore, so they're becoming too similar in my opinion. I really enjoyed having a more responsive stability shoe and a more max cushion, max stability shoe in the Gaviota 5. However, let me know your thoughts below. Otherwise, if you're interested in picking up the Arahi 8 or the Arahi 7, I put links in the description below. If you purchase through the links, it helps fund the channel without affecting the price that you pay. We do buy these shoes with our own money, so it does really go a long way if you purchase through the links. Otherwise, if you found the video helpful, just like and share and subscribe, and really makes a massive difference to us. Thank you very much for watching.